Hello everyone, welcome to Trio Talk. This is going to be an interesting series to do. I'm not particularly playing the game seriously. For example, I'm going to put it on peaceful and I'm just sort of chilling out really. Is there an auto jump option? I feel like there is. Yeah, this could be an interesting series. I've not played this game since I gotta say 15 or 16. A couple of the friends that I have right now in my life, and he's been on the channel before, Ben, I met through a website called Huppet, and we started playing Minecraft together. Way back when. This is in 2015, maybe before that even. Actually no, I think it may have been a little bit after. Let's see. I left high school in 2011. I need some seeds. I left high school in 2011, which means I must have been talking to Ben at around, I'd say a year later, so 2012, so way before. But we didn't start playing Minecraft until like 2013, I don't think. I think that's when I got into it. So I don't actually know if you need food and peaceful or not. I kind of hope you do. So that was when I played this game a lot. I don't know how to get my inventory. What the hell is that? Oh, who knows? I'm scared of that. I'm getting rid of it. I know there's a way I can quick do that, but I've forgotten how. I've forgotten how to quickly do that. I'm gonna have to sort of remember things as I go on here. I'm remembering enough right now to get by, I think. No, that's a shovel. How do I make a hoe? I've forgotten how to make a hoe. Ah, man. Is it like that? Yes, it is. So this series is going to be rather heavily edited as I remember to talk about things. I'm trying to remember what I was talking about just then. Oh yes, I was talking about my time on this game as a young lad. So yeah, about 16, 17, I was playing this game a hell of a lot. This sounds really loud to me, but that's okay. I turned up my headphones. Doesn't matter if it's loud in a video because I can turn it down in editing. Oh, sheep. So when I was playing this game a lot, I was kind of reeling, I guess. So I had a pretty bad time in high school, to say the least. At least squids. I don't remember them being in the game. When I don't need any more then. When I came out of school, it was a really bad. I was in a really bad place after coming out of school. I struggled with it all my life. But yeah, I was depressed, and I've always kind of struggled with depression, I guess. And it's never been a huge impact on my life. I wouldn't say that it's the worst thing about my life. I definitely do a lot better at dealing with it nowadays, and so it doesn't affect me nearly as much. But it does affect me, and I do get it now and then. And this series is basically just me venting about things like that. If that doesn't interest you, I completely understand. But I've always taken the view that you should be very open and very... I keep thinking it's I for inventory. You should be very open and willing to talk about your issues when it comes to things like your mental health. I think a lot of people go through their life not really wanting to talk about these things. There's a bit of a thing about talking about it, and I can't really describe that thing because I never. Auto jump is a little bit weird. I've never felt it myself. I've always been rather open about how I feel. If I'm feeling terrible, then I'll tell people I feel terrible. I never understood the reason of hiding it. Oh, it's shift. So yeah, I'm one of those people that always sort of talked about his issues, never really hid that sort of thing away from people, never saw a real point to do so. What was I talking about? Depression. Yeah, a lot of people don't like to talk about their issues like that. I've always been very open about it, and I've always felt as though it's important to talk about things like this in an open forum such as this. So that's what I'm going to do. So quite a few years ago, after coming out of high school, let me try that again. And I'm British, and I keep calling it high school because I went to somewhere that called itself a high school. It was a secondary school. I didn't go to a private school or anything. I did go to a regular secondary school. It's just that my school insisted on being different and called itself a high school for some reason. So, anyway, back to my point. Now, in year 7, I was pretty happy. I was pretty happy with this new venture in my life that is going to secondary school, and I was looking forward to it. It was only... the EXP bar, I remember that. It was only in I would say towards the end of year 7 and the beginning of year 8 where I really started to sort of hate my life. And a number of things contributed to this, but I'll give you the main 3, and they're kind of a typical main... one of them maybe not, but they're kind of a typical main 3. So throughout my whole childhood, really, I'd always felt a little bit kind of different to the people around me, and I never behaved quite the same way. And it took until I was about 14 for my parents to sort of cotton on that I actually am a little bit socially kind of inept and not maturing as fast as I maybe should be for the age that I was. And they got me tested for autism, and I tested positive after however many weeks of this it was. And that wasn't too bothered about. If anything, I kind of liked the fact that I was tested positive. It was a good way for me to sort of understand myself. I knew why I behaved a certain way sometimes and why certain things bothered me far more than they bothered other people, and all that sort of thing came from me understanding what autism was and understanding the fact that I also have it. So I am glad I got it. I'm glad I got it diagnosed. So that was the first thing. And this in and of itself isn't too big of a deal. However, it did lead into problems in growing up. Thing number 2 is that I was growing up. I was going through puberty, and puberty is kind of a rough thing to go through anyway. As a young person, as someone who doesn't really understand what's going on. But as a young person who doesn't understand what's going on, who also has autism, it seems to compound fracture the issue. And it made it far more complicated for me to grow up than it would have regular people, I believe. So that was the thing. That was the thing that happened. Then the biggest thing that happened to me in this time was, for whatever reason, I'm going to put it down to the fact I was different to people, and I was quite open about my sexuality, which at the time I was adamant I was gay, because although I fancied women as a very young boy, I had not fancied any girls really since about year 4, year 5. And in year 8, I started fancying a boy. We'll call him Andrew, because it's easier for me to remember an actual name rather than just nicknaming him or something. So Andrew, started fancying this boy named Andrew, and I was pretty open about it. And part of the reason I was open about it is because during my upbringing, and this isn't to speak negatively of my parents. My parents were fantastic raising me. Maybe a little bit too fantastic, because in raising me they taught me that they didn't really teach me that there is a thing called being gay. You just kind of were what you were in their house, in their eyes. And if you were gay, then you were gay. If you were straight, then you were straight. It wasn't treated as anything different in my family. And there's a couple of reasons for this. So my father and my mother both had a friend who is or was a writer, believe it or not, for the BBC at one point in his life. I don't think he is anymore. And he was gay. So I grew up seeing him fairly often, and so it was just sort of like a common knowledge that he was gay, and it didn't matter. And in my very young years, before I was about 6 and he died, I had an uncle who was gay, who I have a few fond memories of. So being gay in my family was just kind of like just a thing. Like, there was no real whatchamacallit to it. It just was. If you were, you were. It didn't matter at all. And that is a good thing. I do credit my parents for that. Although, however, it did lead me into some trouble in my teenage years, because I got made fun of for being gay, obviously. Because teenagers what they don't understand, they make fun of. It's that whole deal, isn't it? So I was being made fun of because I was gay, or representing myself as gay. It turns out I am actually bisexual, or at the very least I am on some level of that spectrum somewhere. I don't really care where. It doesn't bother me really. I've had a girlfriend since, and I mean, it didn't work out, but it wasn't because of my sexuality. It didn't work out. It's because reasons. So, I wouldn't say I'm completely gay. I'm definitely more straight than I am gay, but this is irrelevant, right? I might cut that. The relevant point here is that in my youth I was presenting myself as gay. I'm still quite effeminate now. I never really identified with a masculine gender thing. It never really stuck with me. So I've always been quite sort of effeminate. I wouldn't say camp or flamboyant, although some of my friends would. I would always say I'm just effeminate. I was autistic, which meant already I sort of had a minor disconnect with the people around me. And this is something I'll explain later if I remember. And I was just an easy target. I am and was a scrawny child, scrawny adult who is just an easy target. You can snap me over your leg rather easily if you're just a mouse. Never mind if you're a full-grown human being. So I had a very traumatic experience in high school, in secondary school, when I was growing up. I didn't realise it was really traumatic until rather late on in my life. I recently started going to therapy as of last year because of a number of reasons. None of them really relevant to this story. So, all of these things, being all this sort of thing in my teenagers, really compounded into me and made me. It didn't actually make me depressed at first. That came, I'd say, 2 or 3 years after leaving school. In school, though, I held on to the emotion of anger. I was very angry at everyone for treating me the way they did. very upset that they would treat me the way they did. And so I kind of oh, that's done. And so in a vain attempt at thinking I had control, in a vain attempt at thinking that I had control, I held on to anger and became just engrossed in that feeling. I was angry at the people that bullied me. I was angry at and again, teenage angst mixed with it as well, and all those normal things that come with the territory, I suppose. I saw a bunch of sheep around here earlier, I'm sure of it. All of those things that come with it. I was just very angry, and I held on to that anger, especially at the people that were bullies to me, and I held on to it for many years until only fairly recently, and I'll get to that soon. And I won't go into the gruesome details of the things they did to me, because frankly it's rather boring, and I've talked about it enough times at some point in my life at this point now, so it's not worth getting into again. But the truth is, it was traumatic for me. I don't really know how to explain to you why, because your brain does this thing called limitation of damage, like damage limitation. It tries to, there we go. It tries to pretend like what happened to you wasn't that bad in a vain attempt to make you feel safe and in control. But really all it does is it just gives you trauma, and it makes you avoid the problem, which isn't good for you in the long run. But that's what I did. I avoided this problem, the very quickly developing problem I had of, what the hell is that thing? I don't even know what that is. Oh, who cares? Right, anyway. Hanging on to that anger for many years didn't help me, as you can probably imagine. It just made me resentful and hateful, and I felt all this ill will towards people who did this to me in school, and frankly it was so many years ago at this point that it's not even relevant, you know? So many years ago at the point in which a white bed, it used to make it just red. It was so many years ago at this point where it doesn't matter anymore. Or rather it shouldn't have mattered anymore, but at 17, 18, 19, even 20, I was still holding on to that intense hatred of the people that did that to me in school. And because the hatred had nowhere to go, now when I was in school I could fuel it at the people, or into writing, or into the music I listened to, and all that sort of thing. I didn't have that anymore, you know. I'm 18, 19, I was in college, I for all intents and purposes should have moved on with my life and whatever, but I couldn't let go of that intense heated hatred I had, I guess, of the people I had in my classes. So once again, ever the genius, I held on to that for many years, and it didn't help me at all. It went actively against me, if anything. So I'm sorry this is so messy. It's very hard to recall these things at the same time as playing a game. It eventually manifested itself into depression, and that's where I found myself a couple of years ago. So at around age 20, 21, I lost my mind a little bit. I don't know how to relay the story, if I'm being honest with you, because I didn't do anything drastic, you know. I wasn't ever really one of those people that did that, but left. But I definitely hit a point where I was like, what the hell am I doing? And by this point I'd moved out. I'd moved into my flat I'm in now. And I was just sort of sitting around not really doing anything, just sort of wallowing, I guess, in my own self-pity and hatred and whatever. And on a whim, I went to church. And I'm not gonna tell you the whole finding God story here, because I've done that before on the channel. It's somewhere around here. I think it's in Royal Rumble, part 22. So go and watch that. It's the Jobby Johnny series, which is a few parts in now. So I'm going to fast forward this bit of the story because I've explained it before. So I went to a church down the road from me and started talking to a woman. In these conversations I questioned her about God and all those different things, and it led to me getting invited to a church ceremony by a different girl that I met in college who turned out to be a Christian. In that sermon, for whatever reason, I felt ill and I left the sermon halfway through. The girl followed me out a little bit afterwards, after finishing the hymn or whatever it was that was going on at the time, and was asking me, "Hey, what's wrong? Why have you run out?" and whatever. I said, "I feel ill. And make God make me feel better again." And then he did. And fast forwarding then about, I don't know, let's say I actually came to the full conclusion of God and Jesus and all that. So it took me about a year after the initial kicking down of the door, for me to actually accept God and Jesus and all that. But that's not the massively relevant part of this story. What is massively relevant is that I still suffer from depression. And it's hard as a Christian to sort of quantify in your head the fact that you have depression, despite knowing that this isn't something that will be a part of you forever. And this is where I get to the point I said earlier, where I was like, I'll talk about that in a bit, when it comes to my autism. So, part of my autism, and part of maybe everyone's autism, but specifically for me, I feel very separated from people. I feel very different to everyone that I talk to. I feel as though I'm not one of them, like I'm sort of off kilter to them. And someone described it once as being a factory worker malfunction somewhere who put the wrong jigsaw puzzle piece into a 1,000-piece jigsaw set. So, you know, you've got a whole jigsaw set that's dedicated to building the Leaning Tower of Pizza. It's 1,000 pieces, and 999 of them are dedicated to building the Leaning Tower of Pizza. And then there's me, the Notre Dame piece that got misplaced. That's what it feels like, pretty consistently, and it's really gay. And you know, it's not as though it's the worst thing in the world, feeling a little bit out of place from everyone around you, but I do, and that's the long and short of that statement, is that I feel as though I don't belong in the world. I never have. And this links back to all the way back when I was a teenager, when I was young, all the way up until now. I've had this great feeling of out of place in my life consistently for as long as I can remember. From when I was about 7, like 5, 6, 7, somewhere around there. And when I talk to God, I don't really get an answer as to why. Now, earlier on when I was praying, I came to this conclusion that although all these things happened to me in high school, secondary school, I sort of understand why now. Or not why, but I can understand how it was beneficial to me, at least. I can see that although it was horrible, and I don't think that God had anything to do with it, but I can see why, I can see how God has used it, if that makes sense. Probably doesn't. I can see how he used it for good, even though it wasn't actually a good thing. So I can get behind that, you know. I'm not too upset about the thing that happened to me since in high school, since about 6 months ago. I've come to forgive those people and put it to the cross. But I still have this deep problem in me of not being a part of the world. And that, you know, and the Bible says that we shouldn't be. The Bible has said that the world isn't where we belong in heaven. But most people I talk to would say they feel they belong, but I don't think I can feel that. And this autism, for all the good it does do me, it gives me this great gift of discernment, being able to tell when people are genuine or not. I'm pretty good at that. I'm pretty good at cutting through bullshit and getting to the point. I'm pretty good at those sorts of things because of autism. But there's a fantastic not good about it that I think people don't typically realise, and that's that there's no real way that I can connect to people particularly well. I do have friends. I even have best friends. I even had a girlfriend for a while who I thought I connected to. But I never feel right. And this is what feeds into my depression. My depression started when I was about 13, because then everyone in school made me feel as though I didn't belong. But it carried on because I know I don't belong. Like I've always felt as though I don't belong, even after I forgave those people, even after finding a group of friends that love and accept me, even after finding a church that loves me and accepts me, I still feel like I'm not in it, like I don't fit in. And I'm not too worried about fitting in. It's really difficult to describe, but it's like there's a purposeful separation, a purposeful wedge between me and the rest of observable reality. And this feeling doesn't really come up often. I don't know if that's because I tend to ignore it or because it actually isn't there. My brain is convincing me that this is worse than it actually is. You can never tell with depression. That's the fantastic thing about it. So yeah, it drives this major wedge between me and everyone else, I feel. And it comes up especially in big groups. When a lot of people are talking, all I hear in my head is that they're weird. They're weird, like everyday jokes, you know, the you know, how's the weather, ha ha ha, and all that sort of thing. Just, I don't know, that whole charade really strikes me as extremely false and fake. When people are talking about something actually serious amongst themselves, I keep thinking it's false emotion. When people are talking about successes or anything like that, I don't know, something in my head just doesn't take it the right way, and I feel left outside. It's this constant quiet hum. A constant quiet hum of just uncertainty and of uncertainty and a feeling of being lost. That's all it is. Constantly. That's what my life has been for 12 years or so at this point. I spent a lot of my school years trying to sort of find out why I didn't fit in with a masculine stereotype, and I understand that now. I spent most of my years trying to figure out what sexuality I am, and nowadays I've just accepted I'm a straight guy who likes men sometimes. I spent a lot of my spiritual life wondering why I don't just change, why God won't just strike down from the heavens as he has done before to people before and say to me, "Hey Jack, I know who you are. You're this." And he gives me this clear, concise explanation of who I am. But I've never heard it. I didn't hear it when I was young, I didn't hear it as a teenager, and I haven't heard it since becoming a Christian. And that's really hard to accept. Christians like to tell you that when you find God, you find meaning. And I don't think they're lying. It's true. Your meaning as a Christian it's within God. It's tangled up within God. But it's not particularly... It's not the most tangible thing, So, although it's true, your meaning is found in God, you may not necessarily feel as though you have meaning. And that's how I feel. And I felt this way for the past 2 years. And this depressing thing as well, it does this whole thing. I know what will make me happy. I know the things I must do that will make me happier. I know if I got out of bed on time and I consistently did things in a day, I would feel so much better. Despite knowing that, I lie in bed until I absolutely have to get up. And as soon as I'm done doing whatever I have to absolutely do, I'll just lie back down and watch videos to distract myself from the nothingness that my life is. And I've been doing that consistently since I was 17. I've wasted 5 years of my life doing that. I know what will make me happy, and I can't do it. Or I won't do it. Pick one. And I don't get why. If I knew why, again, it's that whole thing of like, I wish I knew a way to explain this well. This just constant nagging in your head of just misinformation and lies and thoughts and feelings that don't hold true when held into the light. But you're scared of the real truth. And so you keep those lights off. So you have to ask yourself, what is that real truth?